Hi, I'm Taylor, and I'm going to be talking about the hero's adventure in this book, The Eye, the Ear, and the Arm by Nancy Farmer. So, the hero's adventure throughout this book really is comprised of individual hero's adventures that culminate into this full novel. So I'm going to talk about the first one. And so when we start out with the hero's adventure, the hero is introduced in his ordinary world. So we're introduced to Tendai, Rita, and Kuda. And Tendai is the oldest boy, and he is the main focus of this hero's adventure and throughout the book. So they're living in Zimbabwe in the future, and their children to General Matsuka, and he's a powerful general. But the children are not allowed to do much. They're kept in a fortified mansion, so to ensure their safety and their security. So that's kind of the introduction to the hero. And then the second is their call to adventure. So the children, they want to go on a scout trip in order to earn the scout badge. So that's the main focus. And then the hero is reluctant at first. So mainly Tendai, he's hesitant to ask his father whether or not they can go on this scout trip, because the father is, a general. He's very strict and very militant. So, these are some of Tendai's thoughts. Father lounged in his great chair with his large feet stuck out before him. He nodded benevolently at the family. Now was the time to ask about the trip, but the same torpor that had overtaken Father also affected Tendai. He knew he ought to speak, but it was so uncomfortable to go back to the beautiful vision he had seen during praise. So, Tendai, he's a little reserved about asking his father, but they come up with a plan. So a hero is encouraged by the wise old man or woman. So in this case, the mellower hypnotizes the general and his wife, their parents, in order to convince them to allow their children to go on the scout trip. So the mellower is really the person that encourages them and that helps them go on this adventure that they're about to go on. So then the hero, or in this case, the children, they encounter many tests. So the first test that they encounter is that they meet a genetically engineered blue monkey, and they're kidnapped and taken to Dead Man's Flay. This is where the she-elephant lives, and she makes them mine plastic. So, and while this is all going on, the parents get very worried, and so they hire the ear, the eye, and the arm to investigate and try to find their children. So the ear has super sensitive hearing skills, and the eye can see very far distances, and the arm is super thin and sticky like a spider, has long limbs and long fingers, and is very sensitive, can sense things. So then the hero reaches the innermost cave. So this is specifically when Tendai struggles to cope with the situation of living in the Dead Man's Flay under the control of the she-elephant and mining the plastic every day. So I'm going to read a passage. This is how Tendai feels, and he's struggling with the situation. Sometimes he woke at night with a longing so sharp it felt like a knife. He missed mother and father and the mellower too, but as time went on, his memories of Mazo became less distinct, and this frightened him most of all. So, anytime you're away from something, you kind of out of sight, out of mind. So Tendai is struggling that he's starting to forget his home, and he's missing home, so he's struggling with that. And he overhears the she-elephant that she's going to sell him to the masks. So while Tendai is working in the mine, he finds a way out. So this is this part where he finds Tendai first came to Dead Man's Vley, he wouldn't have had the strength to pull himself up, but hard labor had toughened him. Tendai raised himself into the well until his head knocked against another rung. He let go with one hand and grasped the second rung before he fell out of the shaft. His back knocked against the rough stones, bringing tears to his eyes. He wedged his foot against the side of the well. He edged himself farther up, feeling the cloth of his shirt tear. The stones scraped his skin. Finally, he was able to place both feet on the first rung and grasp the second one with his hands. He rested with his back pressed against the opposite wall. He was almost sobbing for breath. When his heart had settled back to normal, he inched further up. Rungs existed at regular intervals, but some of them had broken, and one even broke under his foot, sending him slamming against the wall. He had to move on with his back pressed to one side and his feet and hands on the other. It was terribly tiring, and he thought that if more than one rung was broken in a row, he might never make it to the top. Finally, the light became brighter, and the scent of the she-elephant's campfire reached him. The next rung was missing, and the next. Tendai looked up at the blue sky and despaired. He couldn't do it. A shadow passed over the mouth of the well as a Vley person walked past. It startled Tendai so much he almost let go, but the fright charged him with enough energy to try again. He wedged himself in the shaft and crept upward. His shirt tore away. The stones cut his skin. He gritted his teeth and kept going. At last, his fingers found the rim. He pulled himself the rest of the way out. He lay on the ground in a half-faint, panting and unable to move for several minutes. So that was when Tendai found a way out, when he was in the mine. So that was when he endured the supreme ordeal, and when he was struggling, he reached the innermost cave, and he withdrew, and he kind of didn't know what to do anymore. He was really struggling. So then he found the light. So then the hero seizes the sword. The trash man takes Kuda out of the Vley, and Tendai and Rita follow. The trash man has really kind of befriended Kuda, so then the trash man takes them to Rest Haven. This is the part where they are escaping. He grabbed Rita by the hand and pulled her along. She woke up from her surprise and took off like a deer. The Vley people gazed at them as they passed, but without the she-elephant's orders, they had no interest in the fleeing children. On they ran, but they stopped to rest when the pace became unbearable. They saw Trash Man in the distance. He was striding along purposefully, with Kuda perched on his shoulders. Tendai and Rita began walking too, and still, no one had alerted the she-elephant. So, that is the conclusion of that particular hero's adventure, and that is when they escape. They seize the sword, they are free, and then comes another, at the end of one, when one door closes, another door opens. So, at the end of that hero's adventure, a new hero's adventure begins. So, that's it for the hero's adventure, and thanks for watching.